So good afternoon. As superintendent of the Whitney Point Central School District, I would like to welcome you. We are pleased to host the Police Officer of the Year award ceremony today. I hope that you've been able to take a look around this newly renovated historic auditorium that was built, in case you're wondering, in 1935 as part of the original Whitney Point Central School District. At that time, it was the only school. We do have two other schools down the road. Some of you may have been there by mistake. They altogether, we serve 1,500 students with full day UPK through 12th grade. This building here is considered the jewel of our community. Before I recognize our honored guests, I would like to express our appreciation for all of the law enforcement agencies represented in this room. We could not do our jobs without you. Not only are you here to respond to emergencies, but you are always available to answer questions and provide guidance to us. You willingly educate our students on topics like distracted driving and internet safety. You participate in community forums on important topics like our drug addiction problems we have in our area. And I belong to a number of councils and committees, and there is representation all the time as you work to advocate for all of the people in our community and fight against things like family violence. We are especially grateful for your active role in our safe schools. We have participation from all of our law enforcement agencies when we do our safety drills, and they debrief with us as we all work very, very hard to assure that our school and our students and our staff are safe. On behalf of the superintendents of the region, our community, our Board of Education, and my colleagues, I do want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. At this time, I would like to recognize the following people: Lieutenant Governor Hochul, Trooper Atkinson and his family, his wife Lisa, their 3 children, and his parents, Trooper Girdle and his family, his fiancée Stephanie Knackley, her parents, and his mother and sister. We are also joined today by the parents and grandparents of the young teen rescued by these brave troopers. Thank you for being here. I would also like to recognize our elected officials, State Senator Fred Akshar, along with Board of Education members and the administrators of the Whitney Point Central School District, especially Tiafneoga Riverside Academy, which is actually the name of the building you are in, Principal Laura Chestnut, who was instrumental in coordinating this event. I now have the pleasure of introducing Commissioner Green. Michael C. Green has been the Executive Deputy Commissioner of the State Division of Criminal Justice Services since 2012. In that role, he leads an agency of approximately 400 employees responsible for many key parts of the criminal justice system. He also serves as chair of the Police Officer of the Year Selection Committee. Prior to joining the Division of Criminal Justice Services, Commissioner Green served 2 4-year terms as Monroe County District Attorney. As an accomplished trial lawyer, he served as an Assistant District Attorney in Monroe County for 17 years before being elected. Commissioner Green.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Greatly appreciated. And welcome. I also want to thank everyone here for coming and joining us to help recognize the tremendous work done by the troopers that we're honoring here today. There are a number of people that I'm going to recognize specifically. And I always feel bad doing this because each and every one of you who came here today helps make this event special. So to everyone here, thank you. But in particular, I did want to recognize first Rachel Small, the Governor's Deputy Secretary for Public Safety. Rachel, thank you for being here. I also wanted to recognize the New York State Police Superintendent, who you'll hear from later in the ceremony, Superintendent George Beach. Superintendent, thank you for being here. Also, the New York State Police First Deputy Superintendent, Patricia Grober, thank you. New York State Police Troop C Commander, Major James Barnes. Broome County Sheriff, David Harder. And Broome County Deputy Probation Director, Terry Carey. Again, thank you to all of you for being here, and thank you to everyone who's come out to help us honor these two troopers. I also want to take a minute and recognize last year's honoree. It seems that we're making a habit of coming to the Binghamton, Broome County area to honor a police officer with this award every year. Last year we were in Johnson City to recognize Officer Lou Chochi for his brave acts, and he's here with us today. We appreciate you coming out. And I believe Captain George Hayes from his department has also joined us today. Thank you. Just to give you a little bit of background on this award, the Governor's Police Officer of the Year Award was created in 1983 to recognize either a single police officer or a group of police officers for exceptional acts of valor. Since that time, and including today's honorees, 110 officers from 17 different agencies have been honored with this award. Trooper Donald Atkinson and Trooper Lawrence Gerdo joined 10 other members of the New York State Police to be recognized with this award. And I remember, I believe it was 3 or 4 years ago when we were in Horseheads to recognize another member of the state police who received this award. The Division of Criminal Justice Services coordinates the work of the selection committee. That committee reviews nominations submitted by law enforcement agencies across the state. Each year, the committee has a difficult decision to make. This year was no different. In fact, this year the decision may have been more difficult than many years because there were so many very deserving nominations. I do want to take a minute to thank the committee members, or committee member, I should say, has joined us today. We have Margaret Ryan with us, who's the Executive Director of the Chiefs Association. She is one of the committee members, helped go through all the nominations and make what was a very difficult decision, not in any way taking away from the acts of the two troopers being honored, but recognizing the fact that we had police officers all across the state who performed exemplary acts, and it made it very difficult, but it was also very heartwarming when you look at all the nominations to see the great work that law enforcement does day in and day out across our state. I also want to take a minute and recognize my staff. I'm not going to do it by name because I don't want to take away from the troopers we're honoring, but the staff at DCJS, the Office of Public Safety, our Press Information Office, and also the staff at the State Police and the Lieutenant Governor's staff. I think a lot of people worked very hard to pull this event together and make it what it is, and I want to thank all of you for doing that. Now, as I indicated, in addition to Troopers Atkinson and Gerdo, 11 other officers from 10 agencies across the state were nominated for this award this year. Although they did not receive the award, each of those officers will receive a certificate of exceptional valor from the governor. Those other nominees were Sergeant Robert Selleck of the Beacon Police Department, Sergeant Michael Garavelli of the Gloversville Police Department, Officer Michael Kadak of the Elmira Heights Police Department, and Sergeant Daniel West of the Horseheads Police Department, together in one nomination. Deputy Benjamin Pisa of the Erie County Sheriff's Office, Officer James Egloff, and Officer Ryan Weiss of the Irvington Police Department, Deputy Joey Tortorella of the Niagara County Sheriff's Office, Officer Christopher Canali of the New York City Police Department, Deputy James D. Phillips of the Orleans County Sheriff's Office, and Officer Joshua Kamatelli and Officer Chad Klein of the Troy Police Department. And again, every one of the officers or group of officers performed very valiant acts and made this very difficult, but again, heartwarming to see the great work done. The last thing I'm going to do today is introduce our Lieutenant Governor. We have Kathleen Hochul, Lieutenant Governor, with us today. She was inaugurated as the 77th Lieutenant Governor of the state of New York on January 1st of 2015. Prior to that, Lieutenant Governor served as a Group Vice President for Strategic Relationships at M&T Bank, serving as a liaison for community matters and significant economic development projects. From 2011 to 2013, then Congresswoman Kathy Hochul served in the House of Representatives from New York's 26th Congressional District. And prior to her time in Congress, she served as the Erie County Clerk and a Hamburg Town Council member. Lieutenant Governor holds a bachelor's degree from Syracuse University and a law degree from Catholic University in Washington, D.C. But for me, more importantly than all that, Lieutenant Governor has been a very strong supporter of the work that we do at DCJS. She's been a very strong supporter of the work that law enforcement across the state does. And we really appreciate not only the support that you give us in our work, but being here to help us with these ceremonies. So thank you very much. It's my pleasure to introduce the Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Commissioner Green, for the introduction. I really appreciate the work that you also do on behalf of the people of the state of New York. I also do want to welcome our new New York State Police Superintendent, George Beach, who was just confirmed a month ago. And I have to tell you, I spend more time with members of the state police than my own family, so I'm always treated with care and professionalism. So I want to tell you, take that message back to the men and women who serve with you. And of course, our Deputy Superintendent, Patricia Grover, it's so good to see you again. And just know that Rachel Small is here also representing our governor. Thank you for the great work that you do, Rachel. And it's really great to have our school superintendent hosting us today here. Who would have thought that this would be the place of such a significant ceremony, but it is, and we appreciate your generous offering of this space today. And my good friend in the state Senate, your Senator Fred Ashgar, we've done a lot of work together, particularly combating the heroin crisis, which has become all too prevalent in communities like this and all over the state of New York. As Commissioner Green mentioned, we are spending quite a bit of time here in Broome County. We were here a year ago for another honor of mine. In fact, last year was the very first time I had as a new lieutenant governor to be involved in a ceremony like this. It was very touching, and I left there with a profound sense of gratitude for the risk that people are willing to undertake when they put on that uniform. It's something that I say shame on us if we don't recognize that every single day. So we are joined again by Johnson City Police Officer Lou Chochi, who received a Medal of Honor from President Obama. You thought you could trump our model, our medals here. He actually went to the White House and represented us so proudly. And again, I thank you for that. I hope this last year has been a year of healing for you and for the family of David Smith. It's been very challenging, and we're really honored by your presence here today. But 1 year ago tomorrow was one of life's defining moments. A cool evening, July, the sun was about to set. And it was just one of those times, one of those random, unanticipated moments that we civilians seldom think about, but men and women in uniform prepare their entire lives for. And that's that split-second decision when you have to determine, when you hear cries of help, cries for help from a fellow human being, whether you make that decision to vanquish all sense of self-preservation, which we are all born with, and whether you cast that aside and decide to help another human being. That's exactly what happened a year ago in this community. And when you think about what had to go through the mind of a veteran father with 3 beautiful kids and a gorgeous wife and his partner, or a younger man who's on the verge of marriage and his whole life ahead of him, what goes through their minds when they make that split-second decision that says, I am willing to leap into the unknown. I will go into the raging, frigid waters and help answer those cries for help. What propels someone to do that? Something did. Something did. And without regard for their own safety, these two gentlemen on opposite sides, meeting up in the water. One had the sense to take his boots off so he didn't sink quite as far, and the other did not. I will not disclose who did what. But the belts came off, they jumped in fully dressed, and it was almost impossible to swim when you're carrying the weight of your uniform. And yet they did. Without regard for themselves, they swam to answer the cries for help from a teenage girl who was doing something that probably a lot of us did as teenagers. Just do something a little bit careless, not anticipating the consequences, which could have been so disastrous. So they swam toward the Whitney Point Dam where the water was raging, and they were heading into an area where if they did not rescue her, they all could have been swept away under the dark water. They did not know in swimming toward that dam and answering those cries for help whether that would be their last act on earth. But it didn't matter. It did not matter to them. And to me, that has got to be the definition of selfless heroism. Something that when you're called to answer the cries for help, you leap in. And instead of, as so many do, running from situations like that, they really, I was going to say run toward it, they swim toward it. And because of this, they were able to reach this young woman who was literally clinging to the cement walls, clinging as the water was rising and she was getting exhausted, hypothermia setting in, her body shutting down from the struggle. And in that child's mind, probably a sense that I might not make it. I can't imagine the fear for that child. But they were there to help. And they literally threw her a life-saving rope and pulled her out. Next for her was a trip to the hospital, healing, and her life goes on. And she's going to have to deal with that. It's still hard for her, I'm sure. But we do know she's going to be able to graduate from high school. And she's going to perhaps go to college and have a career someday. Perhaps she'll be a mother. Perhaps she'll be telling her 14-year-old not to do crazy things. But she's here on this earth because of these two people. Now, the Bible tells us in John 15, no greater love that a man shall have than to lay down his life for a friend. But think about being willing to lay down your life for a complete stranger. That, to me, is what is so incredible. What is incredible to all of us. But that's what they did. But I also want to mention, before we confer these well-deserved awards, and as the commissioner said, there were other nominees, there were other people, and if you read the stories of the other 12 people whose names were put forward this year, I read them in a hotel room, and I'm just sitting there almost trembling, thinking of the circumstances that men and women in uniform in our own state go through on a regular basis, and you never read a story where someone turned their back and ran. It never happens. They don't do that. They're there to serve and protect, and they do it every single time. But before I give these such well-deserved awards, there's another matter I need to address. Because this has been a week of extreme pain for people in uniform all across our country, based on what I would call an assassination of police officers who are simply doing their duty in the city of Dallas. And what is so ironic is that this particular duty on this particular night was to protect the exercise of protesters who were simply they were exercising their constitutional right to assemble. And in fact, the object of their protests were the very police who got in the way of gunfire and protected the protesters. My God, how awesome is that? So I think about that, and I think about those police officers, and I think about the next generation of police officers? Who will be the next Trooper Atkinson? Who will be the next Trooper Gerdo? Who's going to fill their shoes someday? And are we doing enough to want to have young people inspired to do exactly what they did? Because at some point when they were youngsters, they must have said, I want to do that. Moms and dads who are here, they must have said, I want to do that. I want to help people. I want to save lives. I want to do something significant while I'm on this earth. And that's what draws people to the blue uniform all across the state. They want to make people's lives better. But in this environment and what's going on, will that still continue? And I say the answer is yes. And I'll tell you why I'm so hopeful. Because I heard the words of Dallas Police Chief Brown, and he said something that the president repeated, that we are asking too much of our police departments today. We're asking them not just to protect, we're asking them to provide security, we're asking them to be drug counselors, we're asking them to be educators, and we're asking them to save lives. We ask too much of them, and we should be doing more in return. But what I took from listening to the president talk about the lives of these individuals at that ceremony, if you didn't hear his remarks, you really should. He spoke of a woman who brought her children to the protest, 4 kids. She was wounded. Police officers got in the way to protect her from getting harmed even more, and afterward, her 12-year-old son said, I want to be a police officer and save lives. That's the hope we take from that experience, and the hope we take from this experience. When your communities and your state tell your story, you are inspiring the next generation of young people who want to be you because of what you've done. So that is your legacy. Yes, you saved a young woman and she's going to be there and she's going to be beautiful and she's going to be okay. But your stories need to be told, they need to be amplified, and they will inspire other people who want to be just like you. And I know that's going to happen. And it pains me to know that your story will not get the same coverage as national stories do. And they should. And they should. Your stories and the other nominees should be front page news. Because that's who we are as Americans. We celebrate your profession. We honor your profession. We respect your profession because there's so many of us who just don't have the guts to do what you do every single day. That's a statement of fact. And that is why we honor you. And it's the smallest tribute we can possibly give is a medal and recognition today. But know in our hearts that myself, the governor, and the people of the state of New York are forever grateful for what you did for this young woman and what all of you continue to do for the people of our great state. Thank you. God bless you and keep you safe.
We could have our troopers come up.
Hello, I'm Trooper Lawrence Gerdo. Had about 2 years with the state police. First of all, I'd like to thank the governor, the executive staff, superintendent, deputy superintendent, everyone I've been able to privilege to have served with in Troop C, everyone I'm soon to be privileged serving with for the rest of my time in Troop D, my family, my fiance, my future family, and everyone that's here today for this ceremony. People ask me, would you do it again? And my simple answer is yes, in a heartbeat, I would do it again. The call that came out wasn't even on my post. I was 10 miles away. I knew Trooper Atkinson was up there by himself. I was the next closest car, and it didn't take me more than 10 seconds to say I'm on my way and make it up there. When I arrived up there, to see the troop car sitting there with no trooper in it, and at the bottom of the lake, the intake for the dam, and people standing around it, first instinct was look in the trunk of the car where I'd done my inspection and found the rope. Grabbed the rope, ran down to the bottom of the hill, and asked the passerby where the trooper went. They pointed to the inside, and I just knew what I had to do. I remember climbing into the water, getting about knee deep, about 6 inches into the water surface, in which case Broome County Sheriff's deputy came, handed in my belt, and told him to call a sergeant, let him know I'm going in the water with Trooper Atkinson. About 10 more feet into the water, I was swimming. Boots, cell phone, keys, everything in my pocket. Didn't think for a second until I got back and tried to make a phone call. So I rounded the front of the dam where the intake was, so you could hear the water rushing. I remember coming around the corner and seeing Trooper Atkinson, and as our eyes met, it was just a sense of relief knowing that we wouldn't be going through the struggle alone. We'd have some sort of backup, that we would figure out a plan to get through it. We could hear Miss Case on the inside as you're giving her words of encouragement to hold on, we'll be there in a second. We were able to use teamwork to get up there, to get her the rope, to bring her to safety. So instead of losing 1, 2, or 3 lives, we were privileged and honored to be able to bring 3 people home that day. It was an eventful day, and as I do recall, and Trooper Atkinson will recall, after we got back to the station, after Miss Casey had gone to the hospital and we signed off saying we were okay, kind of took a minute and looked at each other and asked, did we really just do that? As we went back to doing our work. And from then it was just a true miracle that we made it through and that we're able to be here today. And instead of one tragedy, there's 3 happy stories of what can really happen when people work together. Thank you.
Nice job, Trooper. Good afternoon. I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor for being here to present this special honor and for her unwavering support of the New York State Police. Also, I want to thank Commissioner Mike Green of the Division of Criminal Justice Services and all of the family, friends, and colleagues who have joined us here today. Our troopers wake up every day, put on the uniform, and go out to patrol and make a difference. They believe in public service and helping others, and often they put others ahead of themselves. When they answer calls, they never know what dangers await or what will be asked of them. On that July night, nearly 1 year ago, without hesitation, Trooper Donald Atkinson and Trooper Lawrence Gerdo put a young girl's life ahead of their own. This rescue is an example of what our troopers can be called upon to do any day, on any hour, any tour, which is beyond the scope of their normal law enforcement duties. This rescue is not something Trooper Atkinson and Trooper Gerdo could have prepared for, because there's really no training for this type of incident. There's no manual with instructions on how to react. Instead, they both relied on their instincts and immediately jumped into action. That's what our troopers do. They protect our citizens, our communities, our neighborhoods, so that the rest of us can feel safe in our homes and on our roads, knowing that law enforcement is always out there. In the process, they also save lives. To say the situation was dangerous is an understatement. The United States Army Corps of Engineers, personnel who work at the dam, told us that no one would have survived if they had gone further into the intake tunnel. Had they been sucked in by the fast-moving water, they would have been underwater for a quarter of a mile, struggling against the current. When Troopers Atkinson and Gerdo made the decision last July to enter the cold, fast-moving water, they surely put their lives on the line. but their bravery resulted in the life of a 14-year-old girl being saved. They both answered the call that day and went above and beyond what we asked or expect of them. Trooper Atkinson and Troopers Gerdo's actions are why that young woman is alive today. I want to commend both troopers for a job well done, and I thank them for their service to the people of the state of New York. They both exemplify the best traditions of the New York State Police. Thank you both.
And that concludes our ceremony. And again, just want to thank everyone for being here to help us recognize the troopers for their outstanding actions that day. Congratulations and thank you.